Larry Merchant, that means Greg Page probably won't have a date with Mike Tyson at any time in the future.
Well, there's another opinion about that. Some people think that now Mike Tyson will be only too happy to fight Greg Page, that somehow he qualified for a challenge after that being knocked out. It's interesting, after his record in recent years, that in Tyson's proposed comeback, that they wouldn't hear of getting in the ring with Page because Page apparently handled him fairly well in sparring in Tokyo before the Douglas fight.
And the big question at ringside after this debacle this evening is, how could he have looked good against Tyson in Tyson's training and look so bad here? Well, maybe it says as much about Mike Tyson as it does about Greg Page. You saw, incidentally, at the end of that tape replay, the face of James Buster Douglas, the undisputed heavyweight champ, who is here watching at ringside himself. And now we return to round 11 of live action between Whitaker and Azumah Nelson, and Mills Lane wants to talk.
Come on.
Solid right hand landed inside by Nelson, and Whitaker seemed to jump backward for a second. Again, Whitaker reaches for Nelson's leg, and Nelson responds with a left hook. Mills Lane, district attorney from Reno, Nevada, doing a little litigation inside.
There are signs of desperation in Azumah Nelson. One or two things that could happen here, Jim. In fact, he could land a big punch, or either he could be knocked down because he's just walking in. Missing a lot of big punches, Azumah Nelson is. When you miss those kind of punches, it takes so much from you. He landed a big punch there. I don't know what not it seriously hurt Pernell, but it got his attention at least.
It was high up on Pernell's head, on the temple. And now Nelson simply wrestles into the canvas.
Talking about the physical strength, no question about it. Azumah Nelson is a lot stronger, but the technique of Pernell Whitaker is a lot better. Good left.
Solid left hand from Whitaker. Incidentally, should you have any doubt whatsoever, Whitaker's trip to the canvas was not scored a knockdown. That was, of course, a slip. Nelson still throwing wildly inside, and he's landing some of it.
It's like 11 rounds too late. He's way too long to get this attack off.
Well, both of Azumah Nelson's last two title defenses ended in 12th round knockouts. But in neither of those fights had he been dominated the way he's been dominated here.
Sit down, baby. My guy, make him move, make him pay. You understand? Now listen, do your little counter with him when he fires that little crazy ass right in at you. You understand? And bang, right back. He didn't want outside now. You understand? We done won this fight. Now keep winning the fight. Don't get fancy. Time is time. Last round, 12th round. Come on. When he gets inside, he's trying to go crazy. Let him throw you down. Let him throw you down. That's eating the clock up. You understand? 3 minutes. Tiger, let's go, Tiger. Let's go, Tiger.
Harold, how do you have it going into the last?
Larry, 10 rounds to 1, 109 to 100, favor of Pernell Whitaker. He won in every round except for the 11th round where Nelson roughed him up a little bit, but otherwise it's all Pernell Whitaker.
I have it 9 rounds to 3. 8 rounds to 3, sorry. Maybe I'm anticipating what's going to happen here in the 12th. It's an interesting fight. It doesn't have any great drama to it, but as I said before, it does have some passion, and Whitaker is putting on a really good show.
And Azumah Nelson continues to stalk to try to get the big comeback knockout in the 12th. He landed a right hand. And he's landing with increasing frequency.
See, one thing about Pernell, he's starting to stay strong. What he wants to knock out, in fact, he's trying it right here. He should stay on the outside.
Of course, his stablemate, Meldrick Taylor, caught a lot of flack in the boxing press for failing to stay away from Julio Cesar Chavez in the 12th round of a fight that he had apparently won on the scorecards. And he wound up on his back at 2:58 of the round.
You can see what Azumah is trying to do, what punch he's trying to land. He's cocking that right hand back. He's telegraphing it. He's trying to get so much leverage behind it. But Pernell Whitaker has not cooperated.
Solid right hand landed to the face of Whitaker by Nelson. But Pernell apparently able to take it. Comes back with a left hand lead of his own.
He's still taking those little shots. And again, Azumah Nelson's trying to land that big punch. You can see the fatigue has set in because this has been an incredible pace for both fighters. But also, Azumah Nelson is strong of the two.
Fatigue isn't going to stop Nelson's desperate charge, nor will it stop Whitaker from continuing to lift his right leg.
The reason that Pernell's doing what he's doing is trying to get a breather.
And I believe that referee Mills Lane took a point away for Whitaker on that. I'm not
sure. He did indeed. He took a point from Whitaker.
He's trying to run that clock down. Pernell Whitaker is. This boxing, that's all he has to do right now. Use those legs. Use that ring. Hands up. He must keep those hands up.
It was just about at this point that Taylor got in trouble against Chavez. Not going to happen here.
Both fighters push themselves to their limits. Whitaker has a much wider limit right now than does Nelson.
Well, we mentioned before the fight that Pernell Whitaker was the slightly larger, considerably younger, and unquestionably quicker man. And certainly he took advantage of the quickness throughout the fight, using his hand speed, his exceptional footwork, and his boxing skills to land consistently with the jab, set up other punches off the jab, to, for the most part, beat Nelson to the punch and contribute to increasing frustration on Azumah Nelson's part that led ultimately to him swinging wildly and hoping for a knockout in the 11th and 12th round. It was all in all a pretty impressive exhibition for the world lightweight champion, right?
It really wasn't the age that made the factor. I think it was the style, the techniques that Pernell Whitaker was able to execute.
Harold Letterman, your final scorecard for the 12-round championship fight.
Larry, Jim, I had it 117 to 110, 10 rounds to 2, decisively for Pernell Whitaker. We do have two British judges here tonight, and I'll say this much. If I had to generalize, I would say British judges do like finesse fighters. This was a beautiful finesse job by Pernell Whitaker. No doubt that Pernell should win this fight.
And, of course, you saw the 8-point round in the 12th on Harold's card, reflective of the fact that 1 point was taken away from Whitaker. And now we go to Chuck Hull for the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the decision of the judges. We have a unanimous decision. Judge Harry Gibbs scores the bout 116, 114. Judge Dalby Shirley scores the bout 116, 111. And Judge Sid Nathan scores the bout 115, 113 for the winner by unanimous decision, And still, the WBC IBF lightweight champion of the world, Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker.
116 to 114 and 115 to 113. That's a lot closer than I think several of us at ringside would have expected it to be. Right, Ray?
It was much more of a dominant fight, the way I saw it.
Final punch count statistics. Whitaker throwing more than 200 more punches, in fact 250 more punches, landing at just about twice the percentage of Nelson. And of course a lot of that was the tremendous effectiveness of the right jab, the southpaw Pernell Whitaker. Larry Merchant is with the champion right now.
Okay, Sweet Pea, how hard was this fight for you? Because this guy came after you for 12 rounds.
Well, Larry, that's the name of the game. I know we're being a world champion, that, you know, taking